listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Cali Estes and Master Coach Jenny Fontana, founders of the Life Coach Method. Each one of our uplifting and deep dive episodes is geared to help you tackle the things that hold you back from having the most magnificent life you deserve. Sit back, relax, and prepare to be coached.
Good morning, everybody. Dr. Cali Estes with Unpause Your Life and the Addictions Coach and Sober on Demand. I'd like to welcome my wonderful guest today, Mark Kohl. And he is a successful, innovative, cutting-edge director and cinematographer in the world of television and feature film. He has shot features for Francis Ford Coppola's American Zoetrope production company and served as the director of photography on Aaron Spelling's Safe Harbor. In addition, he's directed and shot over 130 episodes of America's Most Wanted, lensed over 15 films such as Lonely Hearts with John Travolta and James Gandolfini, and HBO's Recount with Kevin Spacey and Dennis Leary. In between that, he's also delivered more than 2,000 commercials to hundreds of agents and clients such as McDonald's, Honda, Ford, AT&T, Pizza Hut, Carnival Cruise Line, and Dick's Sporting Goods. But you may also know him from founding a product called Frequency Caps, which is a groundbreaking company, and it combines psychedelics and sound healing. So join me in welcoming Mark Kohl.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Tell me a little bit about cinematography first. Let's start at the beginning. How you got into that, what you loved about it, that kind of a thing. And then we can talk about your personal journey and how you got into sound frequency and psychedelics, which is fascinating.
Sure. I mean, it was weird listening to you read my bio because I haven't heard it in a while. It's a different chapter of my life, but yeah, I mean, it's the quick version is for family reasons, I ended up in Jacksonville, Florida on my 16th birthday, and at that time, it was a very big Southern rock kind of scene. So I started off as a lead guitarist for many rock and roll bands back in the day. And I always had an interest in photography, and was not really interested in pursuing music just because of musicians overall, and just I knew it wouldn't be a way to really make a living, but I was very interested in photography. So one of our roadies worked at a film company, and this is a long time ago. There wasn't a whole lot of them around, and I said, hey, if you're ever looking for anybody over there, I'm interested. And one day he came in and he said, hey, they're looking for a guy in the video department. So I went in and got a job, and I was 20 years old, I think. And I remember, and they were a pretty good size video and film company. They sold a lot of equipment, but they also did production. Nobody had, this is in the days when VHS and Betamax were coming out and cable was coming out. So it was kind of like I was jumping on the equivalent of the internet when it first started, So nobody had any, this was all just hitting the consumers with this type of equipment. And then, corporations and everybody saw the value in creating marketing films and training films, et cetera. So I jumped into that. I somewhat was self-trained. I was super interested in it. And I remember the first time I grabbed, one of these $100,000 cameras or whatever and started working with it. It felt super natural to me. It just felt like a new guitar, if you will, like a new instrument. And it was just really easy and came natural to me. And I realized I saw the world differently than other people. I could see it through the lens of a camera, which was, I guess, some instinct I had. And anyway, I developed a skill just by, working, not really knowing anything, self-taught. And then I started working with, people that knew more than me. And at the age of 23, 22, I had built up a significant client base that just liked me. And I broke out on my own and started my own company as a production company that's still here today. So that was 37 years ago, and or more maybe, I don't know. And throughout all of that, in my career, I opened up one of the first rental and equipment rental company in Jacksonville, Florida. So I had a truck full of equipment, and I taught learned how to shoot actual film, not video. And my real break came when Florida is just kind of known for its crime. They always say, "Hey, a Florida man." So the show America's Most Wanted kept coming to town because of all the crime there, and we were doing a lot of recreations, which recreations are just basically a mini movie, right? And we would shoot those on film, not on standard television, so it looked more like a movie. And they would rent my equipment. Eventually, they gave me a shot to shoot an episode, and at that time, it was a very, very popular show. And I did, and they liked me, and they continued to use me for the next 28 years, I think. But what happened then, this is in the 90s when um, film festivals were just kind of coming out, Sundance and stuff, and there's the days of discovering directors like Tarantino and Rodriguez and these guys. So America's Most Wanted was very smart. They would kind of mine these film festivals for the new up and coming hungry young directors that had a skill. So they would get those guys and then pair them with me as the director of photography and team up, and we shot hundreds of these mini movies. And so I started developing relationships with these guys that went on to do big things, and they took me with them. So then that's when I started coming to Los Angeles and going, wow, this is where I need to be. So I started working all over the country. I started working with all these different directors. I started shooting Roger Corman films. I did a whole series for Aaron Spelling. People probably don't even remember who that is now, but he was a big fish at the time. I was like 33. I shot one of his main shows, and then I just kept you know just growing and growing, and got an apartment in Los Angeles and started being bi-coastal, and I became a very big force in the southeastern market because I was trained now from really talented people in Los Angeles, and I took that skill set back to the southeast and just killed it for a long time. And so I was very very busy a lot, and I was like I said, a force, and did a lot of regional commercials, a lot of and then started falling into more and more television and et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the short version of how I built it up. But literally, I don't know. I figured I've been on at least 3,500 to 4,000 shoot days in my career. So
Wow.
and the thing is about production is every single job is different, right? You're not usually using the same crew. You're walking into somewhat unknown circumstances, different locations, different, weather. You're trying to tell a story. You're working with different actors. So it's uh, it's a business that looking back, that was necessary for me because I lose interest very quickly with things. I could never work 9 to 5. So one day I'd be hanging out of a helicopter chasing a cop car down a road, and next day I'm in a studio on a green screen or something. So there was a lot of and it's very 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 hard work. I mean, you have to push through all the elements, all the problems. So, really, it's just a multitude of skill sets that kept me as a Gemini interested, because it's a lot of problem solving, it's a lot of instinct. There's a lot of pressure. Our average job is 100,000 a day, so you're spending $10,000 an hour, so every minute counts, and they don't care about anything. They just want to make sure they get a show, right? So I became very strong-willed and physically a soldier kind of thing, and could kind of push through any adversity to deliver. So that was my real skill set. Yeah, I'm a good director and cinematographer, but more importantly, I think I built up a reputation of trust that, hey, this is somewhat of a super challenging job. We'll give it to Mark, he'll make it happen, kind of thing. So I wasn't the A-list guy, but I was more of a regional B-list, and I did, pretty well in that space for a long time. And along the way, this is again in the 90s, early 2000s. It was a very, stressful life, and uh, not that many people were doing it. It sounds like somebody else just jumped on the call. I don't know if you can hear
No,
that.
it rerouted me through. It's just me.
Oh, okay. Um, so anyway, through that time, there was happy hours going on in Florida. Everybody drank alcohol. We went to the bar every night at the happy hour. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I just lost your picture. So, okay. Um, so yeah, anyway, within that business, we would have our craft service table with food and whatever. And the second we said wrap, she would turn it around and it was a bar. So the point is, there was a lot of alcohol, there was a lot of stress, and there was a lot of camaraderie around. At the end of the day, getting a drink or whatever. So I started, utilizing alcohol to calm down. I started using it as a, way to unwind and also to calm my very active mind as a creative. And in small doses, it worked very well. It would, settle my mind down, and then I could be a little bit more creative. I would be a little bit more brave. I could talk to that girl, I could talk to that producer, I could write a creative treatment. So, but then, like they say in the program, it was fun, and then it was fun with problems, and then it became just problems. So, um, yeah, so I went through, are you still there, by the way? I can't see you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I was curious. You didn't ever get in trouble or get, lose clients or anything like that throughout this?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, well, I managed to hold it together way longer than anybody else probably could have, because I was an independent guy and I owned my, the own business. I was the boss. So, um, and but you know, we it became, I just started not being as sharp, right? So a lot of people didn't know for a long time. But I wasn't always drinking. Like I would binge. I would do when I realized I had a problem, because I would binge. I would go, at the when I started seeing that this was a real problem, I wasn't like in denial or anything. I got a DUI, I think, in 2000. Um, that kind of shook me up. They put me in jail, obviously, and it, shook me up a little bit. I started going to AA, and but I never fixed the problem. I just would, and it was when I wouldn't drink, I would start white knuckling it, thinking all day, okay, don't drink today, don't drink today, don't drink today, and then of course, you're giving such power to these thoughts. We'll get into that, how that works in a minute, but of course, if I'm running around don't drink, you're eventually going to drink, right?
Yeah.
So because the detox of alcohol is horrific. I mean, you get anxiety like most people have never even come close to feeling. I mean, you literally want to jump out of your skin. Your skin is crawling, and you take one sip and it goes away. So it's like it became necessary for me to drink. So that's when I really knew I had a problem. It went from enjoying it to having to have it, right? I had to have it to be almost normal, because I would wake up shaky, and I would be a little, just not with it. But like I said, if I drank a Bloody Mary in the morning, I would be fine. It would be perfect, right? It would just be normal, actually. It wasn't like, I was stumbling around or anything. But when I started getting up in the morning and having to have a drink, obviously I knew, okay, there's something going on here. But I was, like I said, I had to do it, or, I was a camera guy. I would start shaking, and, it was really tough. And yeah, I mean, I had so many torturous mornings, because you just have to show up no matter what. So totally hungover, totally, and everybody's runs in and starts asking a million questions, and you're trying to shake off the fog. And so what, years and years of that misery. But I started going into AA, which I did for a while, but again, I never got really to the source of it. And this is in Florida. And then I checked myself into a couple rehabs, and they stuck for a minute, but I never quite got it fixed. And I went through about 10 years of just like literally doing anything I could to stop, because I never knew if I picked up a drink when I would stop drinking. And here I am, this really strong, powerful soldier, and this addiction or whatever it was had me. Like I just could not shake it. And I tried. I mean, like I said, and I went into the hospital many times for alcohol poisoning, to detox, because you can't just stop drinking when you're at the level I was. You can die. You can go into seizures, and I was starting to go into seizures, right? So and here I am now. I'm trying to hang on to my career, but I'm not 100% there. I'm maybe 40% there. And the recession came in 2008, and all my businesses started shutting down, and I had a bunch of rental properties, and they started, people stopped paying rent, and I was faced with a lot of challenges. And then the whole industry changed into super low budget stuff, and people were started to shoot their own things in house, and editing started happening on laptops. And so my skill set wasn't needed as much as before, and I was not as reliable as before. So it just started kind of spiraling down. I had a lot of properties that I had bought for rental income. They had problems. I didn't have the capital to fix them. I had to start letting them go. I had a big boat, had to get repossessed. Anyway, and so I had I had an apartment in Venice Beach. It was actually a studio that was 300 square feet that I used, and I would go back and forth. Anyway, I went to a job in early 2014, and I had stopped drinking for like a month, I guess, but I was miserable. We call them dry drunks. I was absolutely miserable. I was super anxious. I was super depressed, but I wasn't drinking. I like to say that I didn't have a drinking problem. I had a thinking problem. So, but again, this is all revealed years later. So anyway, I got a job in San Antonio, Texas. It was a pretty big gig, and I hadn't had a big gig in a while. With I think it was for like Nike, with some basketball player out of France. Anyway, I went there, and I flew in, and the producer was a woman, and she said, "Hey, meet me at the bar. We'll go over the job." And I said, "Hey, I'm not drinking, so we can meet somewhere else if that's okay." She's like, "No, no, no, just meet me." So I get there. She's my boss. I go in, and I'm sitting there going over the job, and she sits in my lap with a vodka tonic or something. And, "Why aren't you drinking?" Alcohol is the weirdest drug. It's one of the worst drugs there is, probably the worst. And people think there's something wrong with you if you're not drinking, right? They do. They go, "What's wrong with you? Do you have a problem?" And they shun you, and they make you feel bad, and they make you feel like an alcoholic, and like you have a sickness, and you're, like leprosy or something. It's, it's very shameful the way they were like back then. And I was like, "No, I'm just trying to like, stay clear for your job." And anyway, I eventually took that drink, and I drank, a lot at the bar. I was like, "Oh, I got to get out of here." I left about 10, got back to my room, and there was a mini bar. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Flight, but it was just
Oh
like
yeah.
that movie. I saw the mini bar, and I went, "Oh shit."
Yep.
Anyway, I drank the whole thing, woke up just like Denzel was, pretty much in that movie. They dragged me to the shoot. I couldn't function. I couldn't walk. I mean, they fired me. I went back to the room. I'd never been fired before. My reputation, my phone was exploding with, text messages, and phone calls from everywhere. What's going on? What happened to you? What's going, and I just shut it off. And my like 30-year career was gone in like, half an hour. It was insane. So I was like, so I just shut down. Somehow to this day, I still don't know how I got home. Like I don't remember. They cut me off, so I had to figure out how to fly home, and I don't even know. I was 3 days late getting back to Florida. My bags were waiting on me. I had stayed in a hotel somewhere in the same clothes for a couple days at the airport. Again, it was all a fog, and then somehow I got back to my Venice uh, beach, little tiny room I was living in, and I just pulled the blind shut and just went on I don't know, I still don't remember, 2 or 3 month drinking binge. I don't remember. I didn't talk to anybody. I was shaking all the time, and I would get up at, 6:30 in the morning, just shaking so hard I could barely, walk. And I would walk down to a liquor store that opened at 7 and buy a small bottle of vodka and put it in a paper bag and drink it on Venice Beach. And I was like, how the hell did I get here? You
Yeah.
know? So one day I was laying, I don't know if it was day or night, still don't remember, but I remember I started hallucinating. I started hearing things. I started, I could feel the life force leaving my body, and I thought, I'm dying. This is it. I'm dying. This is what I've heard about. And but I wasn't scared of it. I was just realizing that my body was starting to shut down. And there was one moment in time where I said, okay, this is the fork in the road. You're either going to live or you're going to die. Right now, right here, you have to make that decision. And I was like, I just can't go through another rehab. I just can't. It doesn't work. I've done it. I've spent all my money. I have no more money. I've tried. I've worked so hard with all the conventional ways. I'm a lost cause. I just can't do it. And there was a little voice that said, just try it one more time. Just do it one more time. So I got up, and somehow I found my phone or whatever, and I called a friend, and I said, I'm going to try it one more time. Will you find me a rehab here in California? And she did, and she took me, and it was in Malibu, and they wouldn't take me because I was in such bad shape. So I had to go back to the hospital, stay like a week to detox over my birthday. I remember spending, this is 10 years ago, June 6th, my birthday, in the hospital. Nobody called me on my birthday. Nobody came by and saw me. Like nobody was talking to me. I spent my birthday alone in a hospital room, with alcohol withdrawals. So that's how bad it got. So anyway, I get into rehab. I'm like, I'm so sick of it. I knew more than the counselors. I'd done it all before so many times, but this time I was like, I don't give, I don't give a shit what I have to do. I am never, ever, ever, ever coming back here. So I did all the work as hard as I could. I got out. I went into a sober living. I tried AA again. It was very different out here in California. It was much more open-minded, much more spiritual. The people were much, they were just higher end. I was sitting next to movie stars and big executives, and there was hundreds and thousands of meetings a day, literally in LA County every day. So and then I found an amazing sponsor who was extremely hard on me, but it's exactly what I needed, and I really did the work this time, and I never left. I never left California, and and through that, I was going to, two meetings a day just to stay busy. I was so afraid of being locked in that room, the scene of the crime, if you will, and I would pick up and start drinking again. So I would do that, and then my sponsor got into Kundalini yoga, and it's a very advanced, very ancient technique of all the modalities kind of in one. It's prana. It goes back to Egyptian times of controlling the mind. It's Buddhist. It's Sikh. It's all of these things all in one. Deep breath control, breathing control, heavy duty poses, chanting, very, very difficult things, but it all had to do with, well, encompassed everything. And it was it's super high technology. They're just now discovering all these things that the Kundalinis and the yogis have known for millenniums, of the mind and sound and how it affects the brain. And so I started doing that and going twice a day to those classes because they're very physical, very mental, very, challenging, but I could feel my brain reprogramming itself, and I could feel my body being stronger and stronger, and I wasn't so sensitive. Because once you come out of a alcohol like that, for most of my life, I've never really sat in full sadness or full depression and worked through it, or any emotion. So you're super, super sensitive. So, and then along the way, I was just shooting little things for people here and there to stay busy and trying to meet new friends and build a whole new life. And I was shooting some documentaries, and just with my one little camera I had left, and I met some people that were into ayahuasca. And I was like, I've heard of this, and this is 10 years ago, and it was very underground then, like very. But here in California, we're just on the cutting edge of like so many things, and this was one of them. So I went to my first ayahuasca ceremony, and it just took my head off. Like it completely eradicated in a few hours every belief system, everything I thought about who I was an illusion, and showed me how everything in this earth and this world and universe is connected through a spirit, through an intelligence. And it was so beautiful. Like, it's the most beautiful experience I've ever had in my life. And for the first time in my life, I felt tears of joy, like real joy, that I was going to be okay. And this was definitely a path that I needed to pursue more and more. So now I'm going to ceremonies all the time, and I'm doing my AA meetings, and I'm doing my Kundalini, and trying to survive, in the film business. And so it was quite humbling too, because I had to get back to work to make rent, and I had to suck it up and run. I was a director and this big dude, and I had to shoulder up a camera at 50 years old, a 30-pound camera, and go shoot reality shows for about 3 years, all 12 hours a day. So that was very humbling, but it was part of me building back my mental strength and my physical strength, and my becoming humble and thankful and grateful, because I should have been dead. And so that's the path of how I found psychedelics to help me, but it was in combination with so many other things. And I got to a point where I knew I needed to get out of that one room, 300 square foot, thing I was in, box, because I knew I would go drink again. I knew it was just too, there was, homeless people all around me. And so I dumped my last property. I had a 5-bedroom house on the ocean in Florida that I was barely keeping alive. I just dumped it, lost 600 grand, and I managed to pull out $500,000 in equity, and I stuck that in the bank. And then I had met somebody online who basically got me a fake loan. It was what they call a hard money loan. And I had an approval letter with that. So I started looking around for a place to get out of there. And during that time, I got a gig to go to Hawaii, the jungles of Hawaii, and shoot the making of ayahuasca. So I was like, oh my God, that's so cool.
Oh, wow.
So I go there. It's a buddy of mine. He's one of my good friends now. I had met him through the ceremony loop. And I go there, and it's super intense. It's like this shaman. We're in the jungle cutting the vine. Ayahuasca is made of two components. It's made of a vine, and it's made up of a chikuna leaf that has the actual DMT, and it's cooked a special way, and they make it very spiritually and very in a sacred process. Anyway, but the shaman was like, I've never had anybody shoot any photography here. I'm not crazy about it. So you have to work. And I was like, yeah, I get it. So we would drink medicine all day. It's raining in the jungle. There's, and every night there was a hut with no electricity, no plumbing, and we would do deep dive journeys every night in the jungle, and it was just wild. It was just insane. And I met there was like 8 or 10 of us at this camp to make ayahuasca, and I met a realtor there, and I said, "Hey man, I'm trying to get out of this hole because I'm gonna spiral down again. I can feel it." And he goes, "I'll help you out." So we started looking at properties with rental. I needed rental income to pay. I didn't have a job, you know. So I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to buy something, but I don't have a job. But I had this like fake loan. And so anyway, we're looking around town, Venice, where all my meetings are, where my yoga is and everything. And so I made a couple offers, but nothing went through. And then he said, "Well, what about Topanga?" And I was like, "Topanga? Like way up in the hills there, isolated, where we do mushroom hikes?" He goes, "Yeah, there's a property up there with a building on it that could be developed into something." And I went, "There's no way, man. Like I'll be like I'll be isolated." That was one of the biggest problems I had, I was
Yeah.
isolated a lot. I had this big house I was never in, and when I got home, my friends were working, so I'd sit in my head and I'd just drink all day. So I was really nervous about that. He goes, "Well, just go look at it." And I said, "All right." So I drive up here. I can't find it. It's like hidden, it's this whole thing. I get in out of the car, I look at it, and I'm looking at it's 2 acres of property. I'm like, there's like no way. Like I know what it takes to maintain these things. And I don't like again, I don't have it's one of me. Like I don't have so anyway, and the architecture was okay and but anyway, I walk in the front door and this overwhelming feeling of I can't explain it in language. It was just, I knew I had to be here. There was something here. It was here. I just had to be here, or this was already, I was already here or whatever. So I don't, know. Um, but the point is, I listened. After I started doing ayahuasca, I started listening and feeling information when it would come in. I stopped doing things logical, right? Whatever logical is. Like, I tell people there's no straight lines in nature, right? There's no like one path. So I walk outside on the driveway and I do a logic check. Even so, I was like, "Can you afford it? No. Can you maintain it? No. Do you know anybody? Do you know anybody here? No. Can you afford it? Can you afford it? You already asked me that. No, 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 no." It made zero sense. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know what to tell you, man, but I'm supposed to do this. And he goes, "Okay." So I bought it. And then I move in. I'm like, what the hell have I done? Like I'm way up these windy roads, by myself in this big place that I can't afford, maintain, no one here, nothing. But I just followed this feeling. And so I called somebody who was in the spiritual world. I'm trying to hang around spiritual people, hang around a whole new crowd. You have to rebuild everything when you're rebuilding your life. You cannot go back to the same people you hung out with because they'll pull you back in. So I called somebody and I said, "Hey, I'm just looking to rent one of the rooms to, offset the mortgage, and I want to get new friends." And she goes, "Well, what about me?" And I said, "Okay." So she moved in and knew a ton of people in the Topanga area that were all these, spiritual people, whatever. They started coming over. We started, have doing ayahuasca ceremonies here. This is like 10 years ago now, or I'm sorry, this is 7 years ago. We started doing all these events. We started doing this stuff. And I started realizing, there was a lot of bumps in the road, but overall, like to where we are today, like this place I didn't get this place for me. I got this place to help myself as well as others. So we have had hundreds of ceremonies and healing sessions and breath work and just overall, mental health escape. People come to me and my fear of being isolated was completely flipped. I don't go anywhere. Everybody comes here. They want to be here, right? So I'm pulling, not me, but the I'm the vessel, but the magnitude of healing that this land has and what it does for others is astonishing. And I'm just the guy, paying the mortgage, right? So we have, I literally could not leave here for a month and be slammed, So we've become this healing center for mental health and just well-being in general. And so that's, sorry for the long story, but 6 years ago in this thing, I'm still trying to maintain my film career, which is, it's a totally different world now with everything that's going on. And I'm in Los Angeles trying to compete. Now my reels, dated. And so I started, doing, taking mushrooms on a daily basis and hiking and things to settle my mind. And so it kind of came through many different ways to start growing mushrooms for myself and my friends. And I had a lot of friends that were healers and they were looking for sources that were legit. So I started growing them and I started learning how to do that, which is very, very difficult to do it at, any type of consistency or quality. And so 6 years ago, I started, growing growing mushrooms. I mean, it's crazy. I'm like, what the hell? You're a director and you're growing mushrooms in your basement. What? You're like, how did I get here? And we actually made a show out of it. It's being pitched to Guy right now. It's a comedy about all of this because it's quite entertaining. Like, my whole life now, the people that come and go through here, and I'm just like, what? You can't even write this kind of stuff, healers and mystics, and it's actually on our YouTube channel, but it's pretty funny. It's kind of like a Curb Your Enthusiasm, but in the hippie world of Topanga. But anyway, I started doing that, and failing, all the time. There's contamination all the time. We'd start back up, but I never quit. I just kept going. I just knew I would figure it out. And, but then I would run out of money and I'd shut it down. And then there's something in me. I'd start it back up. And anyway, 4 years ago, it was when the marijuana guys were starting to look at mushrooms as the next thing, which it was, and I had these processes. So these guys started watching me and they wanted to invest in me and needed capital. So I did. And, but it was not the right move. And they were, the people I was working with were basically criminals and they, took everything. And, so anyway, I shut it all down again. I threw everything. I had a tent in the backyard. I threw all the equipment in the backyard. I was ready to burn it. I was so traumatized. I tried for 3 or 4 years and I just lost all this money. And anyway, so a buddy of mine who's a big shaman in Europe, he called me and he said, "Hey, I'm doing a ayahuasca ceremony in LA, and I was wondering if I could use your house." And I said, "Yeah, sure," because I hadn't done it in a long time. And so he comes in and we usually hold like 12 people. He had 22 people. So there was people just bodies everywhere. And I'm like, dude, like what if somebody, there's going to be 10% go wild. And, he goes, "No, they won't." And I go, "Oh, I'm telling you." So I'm going to be what we call an angel. I'm going to monitor everybody because I want to make sure everybody's okay. And he goes, "Okay, but you have to drink a working dose," which is a very little bit. And I said, "Yeah, fine. Okay." I mean, we had pulled all the kitchen furniture out. They were laying everywhere. And so I drank just a tiny bit and it just launched me to the moon. And not only could I not angel, I was like flying. And this story has relevance. So I'm not just telling stories here. They all have relevance. So, and on a side note, I had for the first time in decades, I had like a big movie coming up that I was going to shoot and a TV series. So I was looking forward to getting some income finally to actually have a job. So anyway, I go into this ayahuasca journey. And if you haven't been in ayahuasca journey, we talk about the mother. It's, there's this feminine energy that is God, if you will. It's like Mother Earth, and it shows you it can be very, very harsh or very, very kind. And it shows you truth. It shows you who you really are. It shows you why you're here. It shows you how things connect, how you're missing the pieces of solving a problem, like the obvious things that you're not paying attention to. It's very, it's you cannot explain it in language. Anyway, the mother shows up immediately and she says, "Hey, we've been wanting to talk to you. You've been avoiding us." And I was like, "Oh no, here comes the reckoning." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You know the mushroom thing you're doing?" And I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah, you're getting back in it." And I went, "No, no, 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 no way. I don't know what I'm doing. It's obvious I've been ripped off." She goes, "No, no, 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 no. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it all wrong." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "Yeah, the mushrooms, like I was farming out the science of it. It's very difficult, the mycology part, the spores and getting the right genetics. You need a geneticist. So I was farming all that out. And then we were, and she was going, "No, no, the mushrooms want you. They want you to learn everything." And that 10 years of alcoholism and rehabs and all that stuff was necessary for who you're going to become today. You're going to be the voice of this new path, this ancient path that is now being revisited on Earth for you to help heal the masses and help, and they'll listen to you because of your authentic struggle of this, this what you thought was your darkest times was actually your training camp for what you're about to do. And they said, "And here's what you'll be helping humanity with." And it showed me this montage. It was like hard to explain again in language, of death and suicide and disease and addiction and war. And she said, "This is what you'll be helping humanity with. And they will listen to you. They won't listen to the others, but they'll listen to you. And you, but going forward, you have to only work with mindful people that believe in this medicine, and you have to protect the medicine and honor it and speak truth, and do not do it for the money. Do it for the healing." And then she went on to say, "We know you're scared. We know you're scared, but if you do this the way we've told you, we will protect you." So I get emotional when I talk about it. Anyway, I get out of that ceremony. I'm like, what do I do? And 2 weeks later, the pandemic hit. And all my movie business gone in an hour, right? No, everybody shut down. And I went, "Okay, I'm listening. I'm listening." So I kicked the door, unzipped the tent, started pulling stuff out. Now I had all the free time in the world. So I studied and worked by myself for 12 hours a day. That was January 2020, and I haven't stopped working 12 hours a day since. So we're in this, and we are we are growing psychedelic mushrooms for healing, not for partying. I mean, of course, we want people to have fun, and that is part of healing, right? So we do have those products, but we are honoring the medicine as it is in nature, not synthetic, not extracted, not whatever they're doing to it, replicating it. They're butchering the sacredness of the mushroom. They're just, for profit, and the marijuana guys have taken over, and they're shoving it in the gummies. And I mean, that is not what these sacred fungus were put on this earth for. They were put on this earth for religious and spiritual and information and helping solving problems and healing relationships, uh, including ourselves first for millenniums. I don't know if you've read the book Immortality Key. There's a documentary coming out, but there's been so much research proving that all religious modalities on planet Earth today had some psychoactive plant ritual in them. So the sacrament of Christianity, they went back and they studied the text and they dissected some of the chemistry of the wines and stuff, and all of them had psychedelic, plants in them, roots, mushrooms, tinctures in Greece. So this is nothing new. And then it became hidden and, burned. They burned all the text. They destroyed the cities that were using these methods because it frees the mind. It shows us purpose. It shows us meaning. So there's no coincidences that this sacred medicine has reemerged just when we needed it, and now what we call the Aquarian Age, which is, there's no question we're at a very big crossroad of being totally controlled or having our free will. And along with this is a massive epidemic of mental illness, and it is created by us ourselves. As the Buddhists say, we create our own misery. It's so true. 97% of our worries will never happen. That's a scientific study, right? 85 to 95%. Yet we live in them, where they run us all day long, and they're an illusion. So I make the analogy that these worries are like windows open on the desktop of your computer, and is that everything okay?
Yeah, my
Are,
dog just
are
heard
we?
your dog.
Oh, okay. Are we still connected? I just want to make sure we're all
Yeah.
connected. Okay. So yeah, I'm just talking away. But anyway, I make the analogy that our worries, our imaginary worries, are like windows open on the desktop of your computer. You got hundreds of these things going. They're all running. They're all taking battery power. They're all clogging the computer. It can't think. It can't function. Well, it's the same thing in our brain, right? So what mushrooms do is part of the ego, but they start shutting these windows down, right? So, and by the way, when you're having all these thoughts of panic, your body doesn't know the difference between you paying the mortgage and you being in some sort of trouble with a tiger being chasing you or something, right? So it's releasing the appropriate chemicals of that adrenaline and cortisol, and we know these things kill us, and we live in these states of worry and panic, not for a day or two like we did in thousands of years ago, but we live in them for decades. So then we have heart disease, then we have cancer, then we have Crohn's disease, we have all these, we have high blood pressure, on and on and on and on, right? So then the mind the body follows the mind. It's it's an objective observer of the minds, the body. So we become sick, and we basically are through our thoughts creating these sicknesses that eventually can kill us, right? So just by turning off this is what microdosing does. It turns off and shuts down these artificial worries and puts you back into you. So microdosing doesn't give you any psychoactive effect. It just turns off your worry. And if I said to you, well, who would you be if you had no worries, right? You'd be like a 6-year-old kid running around playing all day. That's why they're having fun. They don't have any worries, right? So
Yeah.
then that's how it works. It doesn't chemically affect the brain other than giving it peace and a break of the nonsense. It doesn't, like SSRIs are very dangerous. I mean, they work. I took them. They work for a moment in time. Obviously, I'm not a neuroscientist or anything, but we do have lots and lots of our own data with hundreds and not thousands of customers. But severe mental illness aside, um, they're not really healthy. They're rewiring the serotonin receptors and what have you. So, or benzodiazepines that they just cut you off, so they numb you, but they're not fixing the problem. So, worry and anxiety, like anything, if you repeat something over and over again, it becomes what we call a habit, right? So, like you drive your car, your conscious mind's not driving your car, your subconscious mind is driving your car. You've driven it so much, you've turned that task over to the automatic pilot in your body, the subconscious, right? So I mean, we can drive and talk on the phone and we're fine, right? So well, that happens with everything. So worry, that's because you've driven the car so much, the neural pathways in your brain have designed a pattern that talks to your body without you getting involved, right? And as the yogis say, and the scientists are now verifying, the subconscious mind is 10 times more powerful than the conscious mind. So that's also where all our illusionary fears lie. That's where our trauma lies. And when you're put in a pickle or in a, some sort of crisis, the subconscious takes over. And if you don't know how to control it, it'll dominate. And that's when crazy stuff starts happening because it's driven by fear. It's driven by survival, right? So, an unaware mind can be, dangerous. So, but these worries and anxieties are habits now because you've done those so many times. Now the neural pathways in the brain are wired for you to just wake up and panic for actually no real reason, right? So I know I'm speaking from experience. So there's an old saying, I don't know if it's Buddhism or whatever, but something like, watch your thoughts become habits, and habits become your destiny, right?
Yeah.
So, right? So this is, part of what we're doing is just, you know, creating awareness. So once you're aware, you can't fix something or see anything if you don't know it's there, right?
So you're running retreats now, correct? You have retreats for the ayahuasca ceremonies, and do you
Yep.
have product for them as well?
So no, we don't do ayahuasca. There's many components to what we do here at Frequency. And let me tell you real quick why it's called Frequency. Um, Mushrooms are very similar to human beings, right? The kind that we grow, especially. They're sentient. I'm not talking about the psychoactive component, but mushrooms in general are very highly, highly intelligent. The mycelium is highly intelligent. It knows what to do. It's the internet and network of the forest. I don't know if you've seen Fantastic Fungi, but explains it very clearly. But they breathe oxygen, they exhale carbon dioxide. They learn, they grow in little groups. I call them families. They support each other, on and on and on. So a few years back, I was in my state of panic and fear and whatever, and I was getting contamination and all of that. And I sold an ounce to a shaman friend of mine, and he called me 2 days later, and he said, "Hey man, me and my friend went very deep on a very, very deep journey with your medicine, and we both saw you independently, saw you in our journeys." And we felt your fear, we felt your frustration, we saw the contamination. He said, your thoughts, vibration, and frequency are in the fiber of the mushrooms. And
Wow, that's
I went,
that's wild.
right. So I was like, once again, I'm living
Yeah.
very differently. I live and I listen and I feel, and I went, wow. So that's when I came up with the idea of, so our mushrooms are grown in a sound chamber, sealed underground, and Mother Earth has a very positive frequency of healing. The ancients used to bury injured people in the earth to heal them, and it does, it works. They still do it in the Amazon because the earth is, a healing vibration of the Schumann resonance, right? So I built this sound chamber and we have speakers all in it and we play nothing but mantras. We play crystal bowls. It's basically all the scientific frequencies of healing, of the chakras of thought, of love. It's science. This is science. 528 frequency produces oxytocin in the brain, the love chemical. I can get really scientific. We don't have time for that, but anyway, that's what we do, and they're grown in this loving environment. And everybody that works here, it's a small boutique, are healers. So they themselves have been healed as myself with this medicine, right? So, I mean, this is the only thing that worked for me. It's the only thing that keeps me alive today because I realize I see the illusions and I see who I really am. And when people ask me how did I change? And again, I speak all from experience. Like this is, I mean, I read and I study, but this is all the hard way. This is knowledge. But I realize that we have this story of who we think we are running in our amygdala. They call it the default mode network, but it's our identity, right? And it runs subconsciously. We don't know it's even there, but of who we think we are. And these are my words, but it runs all the time. It's all the time. And then the ego wants to subconsciously validate that story because the ego always wants to be right. This is what wars are fought about, right? I have to be right, you're wrong. Like you don't have to be right, but that's an ego thing. But it does it subconsciously. So again, an untrained mind does not even know this is happening. So most of who we think we are, our core identity comes from childhood. It's from what other people are telling us who we are, right? And they don't even know who they are, and they're telling us, hey, you're dumb, hey, you're smart, hey, you're a princess, hey, you're fat, you're whatever. So in your head, that story is running, and it runs all the time, and it's going to validate it. Yes, I am unlovable. So my story used to be, this is why I never got sober, which I even hate that word, because what does that mean? But my story was, because everybody's telling me, you're a middle-aged, washed-up, alcoholic failure director. And there's thousands of them littering the streets of Los Angeles, right? They're everywhere, right? They are. I've seen them in the meetings, And so when I was in that drinking mode, I was validating that story subconsciously, no matter what I did, no matter how many meetings, no matter therapy, no matter what. I would always eventually pick up a drink to validate that story, right? Until I shattered it. And again, I didn't even realize I was doing any of this till years later. I shattered that story and I created a new one of a healer. And I don't even know. I was going 1 hour at a time, not 1 day at a time. I'm just trying to meet healthy people, do healthy things and stay friends and do, And now I realized this is what God had in mind for me, is to build this foundation solid of truth and purpose and who I am now, right? So my story is obviously very different, and my brain looks for ways to validate that, and it has no interest in picking up a drink. I'll tell you that. So
This is an awesome story. I had so many questions for you, but you answered them as you went through all the different moving parts. And we are
yeah.
really out of time. So,
Oh, sorry. Okay.
no, that's okay. How do my listeners find your product? How do they find and connect with what you're doing?
Well, they can go to our website. It's frequencycaps.com. We also, on there, you'll find we have an Instagram with education. We do lots of education, right? That's what I'm doing right now, right? And I can talk about this stuff for hours, obviously. Maybe we do another podcast. But education, number one, like what is this, how does it work, whatever. I have a YouTube channel. If you go to our website, or you can look us up, Frequency Caps, of content. Our Instagram, I'm constantly posting things on education, events, all of that. So we have products like microdose for the consumer. We also have a complete facilitator support system that supports them with medicine for their retreats and their clients, to help them break addictions and whatever. We do some, but we're more about supporting the facilitators. I'm a facilitator. I'm gonna be licensed shortly because that's all new territory. But we also have a partner with a school that teaches the facilitator training program that is accredited. So that's part of our supporting the facilitator with the medicine, with all the things you need to do these things properly, legally, and effectively. Because this, psychedelics without proper intention, integration, and use can be harmful, just as anything, right? So, so we have that, and then we do sponsor retreats. Like I have properties. I have another one in. I manage it in the desert, and I have others that we can rent. But we sponsor these things called healing retreats, frequency healing, because that's what the real mission is to have people experience this, because until you experience it, you cannot understand it. So we're teaching people how to understand it themselves, right? And so so we have that as well, and like we're working with we're working with scientists, we're working with psychologists, we're working with the psychedelic studies of psilocybin at USC. We're very involved, with very legit people. We're not like hippies growing mushrooms in the basement. I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. I'm all about science and spiritual science. I speak in yogic science, which is a very high-end technology that is now starting to mesh with Western science. But anyway, we're here in California at the peak of, not the peak, the beginning of this real massive shift in consciousness. So we're part of all of that, and
That's
that's
really
what
awesome.
we're just bringing legitimate science and people's testimony, mine especially, that I would not be here today without psychedelics. And not only am I here, we are thriving because we are just trying to get the message out so that people can find us before they pull the trigger. And because we have people we know committing suicide all the time, and we're suicide prevention right here. So that's what we're doing.
I think this is a great product. So, and I think it's a great story of how you got here and what you're doing to help people. Definitely beneficial. We're going to put the links and everything up in your bio so people can find you, and do some, threading through of what we have as well, so that people can get to you and find the resources. And I do want to thank you for coming on the show today. It's awesome to have you. You are listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Cali Estes, and my guest today was Mark Kohl.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Cali Estes and Master Coach Jenny Fontana. Head over to www.thelifecoachmethod.com to learn more about coaching yourself and how to become a master coach.